The liberal advocacy organization Demand Justice is launching an aggressive and somewhat unconventional political offensive, a series of TV and online ads criticizing three senators who typically align with Democrats but have supported at least one of President Trump's judicial nominees this year. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. It's a striking move, especially coming from a group that traditionally focuses its energy on broad judicial reform rather than confronting members of its own ideological side. This new ad blitz is part of an initial $1 million campaign set to launch on Wednesday. The primary argument behind the ads is clear and blunt. According to Demand Justice, none of Donald Trump's judicial nominees deserve bipartisan backing, because they believe these nominees have demonstrated greater loyalty to Trump than to the Constitution they would swear to
support this
uphold.
claim,
The group points to something they consider deeply troubling. In written responses submitted to the Senate, not a single one of Trump's picks for lifetime federal judgeships has stated outright that Trump lost the 2020 election, nor have they directly acknowledged that the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, constituted an insurrection. Demand Justice says this unwillingness to affirm basic facts is essentially a quiet pledge of allegiance to Trump's falsehoods and a warning sign about how these judges might rule in politically charged cases. The first three senators in the group's crosshairs are John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire, and Angus King of Maine, an independent who caucuses with Democrats. Interestingly, none of these lawmakers face re-election battles in 2026, making the campaign more about shifting long-term behavior than influencing
All
upcoming
three senators
races.
are
Widely seen as moderates and were among those who voted to end the government shutdown last month, a position that often places them at odds with the party's progressive wing. Demand Justice's president, Josh Orton, explained that the judge's evasive answers raised serious concerns. If nominees are unwilling to state a simple truth about the 2020 election or describe January 6th in clear terms, Orton argues that calls into question their ability to interpret the law fairly and independently. They're supposed to be neutral arbiters, he said, yet they can't bring themselves to contradict Trump's biggest lies. The group lists each senator's track record on Trump's nominees. Fetterman has voted to confirm one Trump-appointed judge. Hassan has supported 3. King
Democratic
has voted
senators
for 4. Routinely ask Trump's nominees direct written questions such as, did President Trump lose the 2020 election? Trump himself still refuses to admit he lost, and his nominees generally dodge the question too. Instead of giving a yes or no answer, many reply with phrases like Biden was certified, or Biden has served as the 46th president, avoiding any explicit acknowledgement of the election's legitimacy. Demand Justice says its ad campaign is meant to expose these evasions to the public and to pressure Democrats to stop offering Trump's nominees any stamp of bipartisan approval. There is no moral, political, or historical reason, Orton insisted, for Democrats to confirm lifetime judges who effectively take a political loyalty pledge to Trump. Alongside the ads, the progressive group Move On is mobilizing its members to push Senate Democrats to vote no on every one of Trump's judicial picks. This coordinated activism marks a rising sense of urgency among left-leaning groups about the long-term shape of the federal judiciary. Demand Justice has been highlighting these issues for months. They even ran a full-page advertisement in the Wall Street Journal detailing the nominees' professional backgrounds and their law school affiliations, an unusual move intended to draw attention from the legal community and political elites. Most of Trump's judicial nominees have been confirmed almost entirely along party lines. However, one nominee, Harold D. Moody III, tapped for a district judgeship in Alabama, managed to attract broader support. He received 66 votes, including backing from 14 Democrats or Democratic-aligned senators. In written responses, Moody was asked whether he denounced the January 6th insurrection. He answered by condemning all violence against law enforcement and government officials, but added that the label insurrection remains the subject of
Orton and
political
his
debate.
group,
Such answers fall far short of acceptable. The goal here is to change behavior, Orton emphasized. If Democrats pledge not to confirm any nominee who avoids acknowledging Trump's falsehoods, Demand Justice says it will end the campaign and even celebrate. But if Senate Democrats continue supporting Trump's picks, the group warns it will escalate the effort with more ads aimed at more lawmakers. It began quietly, almost too quietly for Washington. A city built on whispers, back-channel deals, and power plays barely blinked the moment a small liberal advocacy group released a statement about a new ad campaign. At first glance, it looked like routine political noise, another organization shouting into the wind about judicial nominees. But within hours, it became clear that this was no ordinary protest. It was a declaration of war, not against Republicans, but against Democrats
Demand
themselves.
Justice,
A group known for throwing its weight behind judicial reform and progressive legal causes, stunned political insiders by announcing a $1 million campaign aimed directly at members of their own ideological family. And not just any Democrats, some of the Senate's most respected moderates, lawmakers often seen as the bridge builders in a deeply fractured Congress. The ads would begin rolling on television and across the internet, each one hammering the same message with unflinching intensity. Democrats should not, under any circumstances, be giving bipartisan approval to President Trump's judicial nominees. The argument didn't rely on ideology or party loyalty, it centered on something Demand Justice insisted was far more troubling. The nominees, they claimed, had shown a disturbing unwillingness to acknowledge basic truths about America's recent history. None of them had stated clearly that Donald Trump lost the 2020 presidential election. None of them had acknowledged that the attack on the Capitol on January 6th was an insurrection. Those omissions, the group argued, were not accidental. They were signals, quiet, careful signs of allegiance to Trump's falsehoods. For Demand Justice's president, Josh Orton, this was a red line. To him, it didn't matter what law school a nominee had attended, how impressive their resume looked, or how calm and diplomatic their answers sounded. If they couldn't bring themselves to affirm simple factual history, then they had no business serving on the federal bench for life. And if Democratic senators were helping install those nominees, then those senators would be held accountable, publicly and aggressively. The first wave of ads targeted 3 lawmakers: John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire, and Angus King of Maine, an independent who caucuses with the Democrats. All 3 had voted to confirm at least one of Trump's recent nominees, and all 3 were considered moderates, lawmakers who often prioritized compromise over confrontation. None of them faced re-election in 2026, which made the timing all the more unusual. Demand Justice wasn't trying to sway voters. They were trying to change behavior inside the Senate itself. In the corridors of power, where conversations are weighed and measured like gold dust, the campaign sent a shockwave. For months, Democrats had been grappling with a delicate question: how to respond to Trump's new slate of judicial picks. While many progressives demanded total resistance, moderates often argued that the Senate still had an institutional duty to review nominees fairly, regardless of the president's party. But the evasive answers in the nominees' written questionnaires had complicated that argument. When confronted with the question, did President Trump lose the 2020 election? Nominees often sidestepped, emphasizing instead that Joe Biden had been certified and served as the 46th president. It was a legalistic dance, a way to avoid contradicting Trump's continued refusal to accept defeat. To Orton and his allies, that dance was disqualifying. The campaign went further than simply calling out evasiveness. It framed those answers as a form of loyalty pledge, a quiet but clear signal that the nominees were unwilling to break with Trump on his most notorious lies. If that was true, Demand Justice argued, then Democrats who voted to confirm these judges were helping mold a judiciary that would favor political allegiance over the rule of law. As the ads were prepared for release, whispers spread through political circles. The campaign's tone was relentless, unapologetic, and accused respected senators, ones often praised for seeking bipartisan solutions, of giving undeserved legitimacy to nominees who refused to affirm the truth. The message was unmistakable. Bipartisanship might be noble, but not when it came at the cost of institutional integrity. Senator Fetterman had voted to confirm 1 nominee. Senator Hassan had supported 3. Senator King had backed 4. Their votes, Demand Justice said, were enough to justify public pressure. Even more striking was the group's promise that this was only the beginning. If more Democrats supported Trump's nominees, the campaign would expand. More names, more ads, more scrutiny. Meanwhile, the progressive organization MoveOn prepared its own mobilization, urging Democratic voters to flood senators with calls, emails, and messages demanding that no Trump judicial nominee receive support. This wasn't a simple policy disagreement. It was becoming a test of moral and political boundaries, a moment designed to force